All right, let's talk about the United Nations. You know the name, you've probably seen the blue helmets on the news, but what is it really? Well, over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack the story of what might be the world's most ambitious project ever, a global institution that was born directly from the ashes of war. To really get the UN, you have to start with just this colossal question. Think about it. In the first half of the 20th century, humanity just went through two of the deadliest conflicts in all of history. So the stakes, they couldn't have been higher. This wasn't some academic exercise. It was a question of pure survival. And the answer, as the world's leaders discovered, meant learning from a pretty catastrophic failure. Because you see, before the United Nations, there was another attempt at this whole global peace thing.
It was called the League of Nations. It was this brand new idea that came out of the trauma of World War I, and it was the world's very first go at creating a place where countries could just talk instead of fight. A really noble experiment for sure.
Yeah, stark but true. The League of Nations was basically powerless to stop the aggression that led straight into World War II. It had no muscle, no real authority, and at the end of the day, it just couldn't stop the world from plunging right back into darkness.
So in 1945, with cities in ruins and tens of millions dead, world leaders knew they had to build something better, something stronger. They needed like a new rule book for the world, one with real institutions to actually back it up. And they built this new organization on three core pillars. Okay, so first, the obvious one, preventing war. But they realized you can't do that in a vacuum. You also have to uphold human rights, and you have to promote global development to tackle the root causes of conflict. You know, things like poverty and injustice.
Now, the heart of this new system is the General Assembly. Just think of it like the world's town hall meeting. Every single member country, from the tiniest island nation to the biggest superpower, gets exactly one vote. It's the big stage for debate and discussion.
But, okay, if the General Assembly is the town hall, then the Security Council, that's the muscle. This is the part of the UN that has the teeth the old League of Nations was missing. It can actually authorize binding economic sanctions and even deploy military peacekeepers. So here's how the whole architecture fits together. You've got the town hall for debate and the muscle for action. But then you've also got the World Court to handle legal fights between countries. And the Secretariat, that's the huge administrative office that keeps this entire global machine running day in and day out. Every piece has a job to do.
So, on paper, it looks like a pretty solid system, right? But this brings us right to the central tension that's defined the UN for, well, over 75 years. The gap between its power on paper and the messy reality of global politics.
I mean, this is the classic question, isn't it? We see the UN struggling to stop conflicts, and it's so easy to just dismiss it as ineffective. But the real answer, well, it's complicated.
Let's just look at this contrast. On one hand, the UN has some serious power. Its sanctions can cripple an economy, and its peacekeepers have stabilized dozens of war zones. But on the other hand, that power is fundamentally limited. The whole idea of national sovereignty means it can't just barge into a country's internal business. And this is the big one, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council have veto power. That means any one of them can block a resolution, just like that, grinding everything to a halt. It's the ultimate political check on its own power.
But the UN is so much more than just debates in the Security Council. There's a really deep human story at its core, especially when you look at its most important document, a story about the people who quietly shaped its soul.
This single sentence, from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it changed everything. It was drafted back in 1948, and it set a global standard for the dignity and worth of every single person on Earth. You could say it's the moral backbone of the UN. But who do we actually have to thank for these incredible words?
Well, here's the hidden history. We always hear about the founding fathers of these big institutions, right? But it was 2 amazing women who are the real architects here. Eleanor Roosevelt from the US was the passionate leader of the whole drafting committee, and Hansa Mehta from India was the one who successfully fought to change the original wording from all men are born free and equal to all human beings. I mean, what a small change on paper that made a world of difference in principle.
And you know what? That fight for inclusive language way back then has a direct line to one of the most important discoveries in international relations today. It proves why having a seat at the table really, truly matters.
This chart pretty much says it all. It's comparing how long peace agreements actually last. On the left, you've got negotiations that happen without women involved, and on the right, talks with women. The difference in the outcome is, well, it's staggering.
So just how big of a difference are we talking about here? The data gives us a very precise, very powerful number.
And here's what that number means. When women are actually part of peace negotiations, the agreement is a whopping 35% more likely to last for at least 15 years. This isn't about politics or ideology, it's just about what works. Broader perspectives lead to a peace that actually sticks.
And that brings us right back to the beginning. The UN is flawed, of course. It's political, it's often frustratingly slow, but it was founded on this radical idea that a shared table is always better than a battlefield. So in a world that seems to be building more and more walls, it kind of forces us to ask, is this idea of a global forum, a place where everyone has a voice, not just some nice ideal, but maybe our only real hope?